Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Chicago Justice Show. I'm your host, Tracy Siska. I'm also executive director of the Chicago Justice Project. You can find out more about our transparency work and accountability work at chicagojustice.org. Thank you so much for joining our show today. Our main segment tonight is going to be on basically a Twitter thread I was part of yesterday and a little bit this morning. And usually I don't bring those things to the show. I let them just stay and have a life on Twitter. But this one in particular is just filled with so much Trumpian I know-ism. It's obvious-ism. We know better. We don't have any facts. It's obvious. You don't need any facts. You don't need science. You don't need anything. We just know. And I just couldn't help to spend some time talking about it. So I'll show you some of the tweets, and we'll talk about it. And at the end of the segment, I'll give you why it's pretty funny that these people are fighting with us. It's about Kim Foxx, Cook County State's Attorney's Office, and whether she's to blame for the rise in crime, her and her policies. And how hilarious it is that people are fighting with us and making us defend Foxx. In the end, basically, we're defending science. There's a difference, but science, obviously, in all facets of our life in America now is under attack. And you just have to, you have to stand up against I know-isms, and we know, and common sense tells us. Oh, God, reactionary forces, all Trumpianism, but we'll talk about that, but first, I want to talk to you about sponsoring this show. You can go to chicagojustice.org or cjpnation.org, either one, and you can get information about sponsoring our show. We stream 3 times a week. The times will be changing soon, but we stream 3 times a week. We also, this show's available on our pod. It's a podcast. Highly suggest you subscribe. We're going to have some special content going to the pod the next few weeks. But we want to expand our streaming to cover legislative meetings from the city through the Illinois General Assembly that deal with justice issues. All of that greatness, but we need your help to help fund it. So please, go to chicagojustice.org or cjpnation.org, make a donation, or contact us at any of the social media you're watching us on now, and we can customize a plan for you. Next, if you're watching us right now, live, any of the social media you are on, drop a comment or a question in the chat while we're going along with the show today, and hopefully it'll be included, and I'll try to answer all the questions I possibly can. If I'm looking this way, it's because I am trying to read the comments. And we got one, Kyle Nyberg. The Trump people got 2 bites at the apple against Kim Foxx, once in the Dem primary, once in the general. They're not going to stop, right? Crime could plummet to 70% lower than it's ever been in Chicago, and they would not stop. They don't like progressive ideas. They don't like black females. They don't like anyone that stands in the way of the police or the police union. So, and it's not about effectiveness. And as you'll see in the stream on the Twitter thread, let's get to it, and then I will, before I go to it, this is what started it. This is a tweet by Paul Vallis. Now, Paul Vallis, ex-CEO of the public schools, he's been on the show a couple of times. He's run for mayor, a couple other offices. He may have run for governor. In the last mayoral's race, he did so well, he was actually below Bob Fioretti, if you ever remember who he is. He's an ex-alderman that ran for every public office he could and just got crushed in all those elections. Well, Paul Vallis was below him. And Paul Vallis has white guyism to the maximumism. He claims to be liberal, but he just spouts out so many, not so much economically, but criminal justice related. It is Trumpianism, alt-rightism ideas. And here's one. So the tweet reads, so mayor's solution to reduce gun violence is sue gangs in civil court. I'm sure they'll make them cower in fear. Stemming violent crime requires 4 things: making arrests, bringing charges, deny bail, impose long sentences. That's not happening under current city and county leaders. Way to go, Paul. Nothing you have advocated for has anything to do in science. It's not based in science at all. In fact, the science just proves you wrong time and time and time again. But when you're down the Trumpianism way, you don't care. Facts are meaningless. So this was the tweet that started it. So let's get to some of the responses. I asked Paul, basically, I tweeted back and I said, can you show us evidence for any of those things that work that you just advocated for? And here is some of the responses. So I'm going to say Suk Madik, who's Corn Pop 34 on Twitter. Bond reform is not the cause of increase in crime despite people on bond committing crimes. LOL, a bunch of faces, okays. Zero fear of police and zero fear of consequences equals emboldened criminals. Well, prove it. Prove it, my friend. The zero fear of police and zero fear of consequences is rhetoric right out of John Catanzara, Mr. FOP president, Mr. 50 complaints against him president of the police union. That's all it is. The police have been saying this for 100 years. The criminals don't fear us. They don't respect us. This is nothing new. And if you look on Twitter today, I went back and forth a little bit with the Beechwood Reporter. Wow, I just figured out what that name is, and I'm not going to say it on the pod. You can, and if you're on the pod, if you're listening on the pod, you can see the video on any of our social media. Thanks, Eric. My engineer pointed it out for us. This is a trope that's been going on forever. It's a trope because if you see today on Twitter, I went back and forth with the Beechwood Reporter a little bit, Steve Rhodes, who's a friend of the show, talking about how police morale is at the lowest it's ever been. How is that possible? Every year, the police reporters and cop reporters and crime reporters talk about how police morale is as low as it can get. Is there no bottom to police morale? Come on, it's got to bottom out at some point. But it's a trope that white police able to say over, and not even just white police, all police, but mostly white police. Mostly white male police. So here's the next one. Same guy. The evidence is what's happening now. CWB, that's CWB Chicago, the alt-right attempt at a news outlet that's actually a political operation. CWB has a list of felonious thugs out on bond, or EM, electronic monitoring, who have committed felonies. Newsflash, bad guys belong in jail. No. Well, first of all, what's a bad guy? And since this guy thinks the police work for him and don't fear abuse of the system, it won't be used against him, anything the cops do is right. If you're a conservative, which you purport to be from your tweets, then I think you would be against the government just locking someone up for years waiting for a trial just because a cop said he did something. And by the way, may I recommend you go look up the definition of bond and bail and what it's for. And by the way, just because some people out on bail are committing felonies does not mean it's what's driving the increase in violence and crime in Chicago. If you look at this and nowhere in your definition is the pandemic, you have a problem. Back to the comments. Are Trump people the ones stopping fixes for policing? My answer to that is no. They're definitely a roadblock, Carl, but in my opinion, the biggest roadblock is mainstream conservative Democrats or just slightly liberal Democrats. You know, Lightfoot, for all her rhetoric, has been horrific on police reform, in my opinion. She's done nothing she's promised. She's the roadblock. It isn't, if you look at the aldermen, it isn't Spizzato. It isn't Raymond Lopez. It isn't Napolitano, because they would just get run over. It's the hardcore Democrat, mainstream Democrats that don't want police reform. The reality is, there isn't an alderman for the most part in Chicago. There are a few socialist ones now. Rodriguez, Haddon, Martin, Cincho Lopez and others. I'm sorry if I'm forgetting all their names now, but those aldermen don't mind taking progressive steps and will take responsibility for what follows, thinking that the long-term consequences of their policies are going to be better for their communities. Most aldermen want no part of that. They don't want to take any responsibility for what goes on for anything. So they will sidestep everything and just blame the police department. Okay, let's go to the next one. I guess it's C. And he's replying, I mean, you've got to be kidding me to even ask that question. Her policies and her office's track record on accountability and charging offenders coupled with a nearly doubling in violent crime. That's what the previous poster meant. It's very obvious. Nearly doubling in violent crime. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let's say, we're not going to probably get there, but let's say, we get to 800 murders this year. That means we'd have had to have been to 400 last year, which we weren't. And even if you take 800 as of last year, which we weren't at, that means in 19 we were at 400, which we weren't. All of this, ladies and gentlemen, is devoid of anything to do with the pandemic. It's just the policies of the police agencies. It has nothing to do with the pandemic. Because if it has to do with the pandemic, then the fixes are beyond looking at the criminal justice system. How anyone in their right mind can think that crime in urban centers, which is up all over the country, is not related to the unbelievable health, job, economic, and housing insecurity that this country is facing is mind-boggling. The pressure that is put on just average people in America, let alone the members of the communities that have the least resources, that have the least faith in the system, that have been objectified and pushed down and repressed and oppressed for, God, decades and decades and decades. And you expect there to be no response. You're going to see through this entire thread, no one mentions the pandemic. Not a single person. And remember, they're talking about her policies are horrible. They're causing all this crime. We'll get to that in a minute. So we're back to our original poster. What you fail to mention is the increase in trauma hospitals and developments in medical science that have saved lives. Well, without the advancement in science and additional trauma hospitals, you'd have the same numbers, probably worse. Okay, but I never said anything about the numbers of homicides or anything. Where did that come from? Once again, I keep posting here, show me data. Make a causal connection between bail reform, or bond reform, depends how you want to phrase it, and violence. And not like there was not anyone that I got on a bail reform, no one has committed an additional crime. No, that happens. Sorry, it does. There's like a 70% recidivism rate when people get out of prison. What research has shown is that it is not a significant contributor. It is not the driver for the increase in crime and violence in Chicago. These people don't care. That's why they can't argue the actual question. On to the next one, Duke of Montrose. That people are very worried about crime in this city and fed up with it. And before you say crime in the 80s and 90s was worse, I don't believe you. I don't care what you believe, Mr. Duke of Montrose. Don't worry about facts. You don't have to believe them. Could you get any more Trumpian than that? Anyways, I'll continue. People weren't randomly being shot on expressways and leaving surprise birthday parties and just walking down the street in the 80s and 90s. Well, do you know that there were no shootings on the expressways in the 80s and 90s? Do you know that for a fact? In the late 80s and early 90s, we had nearly 1,000 murders in Chicago. So that was not as bad as it is now? Or is it just that we have social media now? So you're more hyper aware of it because you're being bombarded by images of it 24 hours a day. And honestly, it's the same thing when you're talking about violence against, police violence against communities of color throughout the U.S. Has it skyrocketed? Probably not. It actually might be better now than it has been in years, decades ago. But it's just that we're seeing it all now because everyone has a video camera in their pocket. You weren't around. How do you know people weren't randomly being shot in expressways? You have no clue. But facts don't matter. This is more Trumpianism. I know for sure. The next one, the COVID kid, RJD529. Now, you know, when you're talking about females in any type of power, you're going to get misogyny. It's coming. I was just waiting for it. So here is he replying to me. Dude, when you pull your head out from underneath Foxy's skirt, that has nothing to do. Look at the criminals she has released to commit crimes against humanity again and again. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, once again, causal link. They don't have to have one. And for this one, we throw in a little misogyny. Now, I wonder, does Foxy's have anything to do with her being black? I don't know what Foxy's is. Her name is Foxx. Why would you alter it? Because you want to demean, degrade. Is it just that she's a woman, or is it because she's a black woman that you altered her name? Another comment by Carl Nyberg. People's fear of crime is driven by media consumption and not the amount of crime. Damn straight. I agree 100% with you, Carl. 100%. The problem now that we're facing is we have social media 24 hours a day, and we have a lot of political operations that cloak themselves as media operations. CWB, Chicago, which is an alt-right conservative outlet that all it does is report on crime. All the reporting on crime that used to be done in the 80s that the media has stopped because they see how dangerous and worthless it is, they have picked up. Chicago City Wire, and now we have Chicago Contrarian as an alt-right outlet of craziness, where Second City Cop Blog shut down, but now they're reposting there. So I agree with you. I agree that the media is very much to blame for all of this, and social media. Back to Duke of Montrose. You want facts? I'll give you facts. Okay, now, here we go. Let's see what the alt-right and facts can be. A number of friends and neighbors, all longtime Chicagoans, have said they don't feel comfortable staying out late downtown. They and myself have all actually rerouted to 294 when headed to south suburbs or Beverly. Okay? Is that because there's more crime? Or is it just because you feel there's more crime? And when you look at what was not reported last year, and early this year, I should say, really, when you look at crime numbers, just general violence, shootings, gun violence numbers last year, people thought, oh my God, it was odd, unbelievably. Now, that was probably mixed up with the unrest and everything that happened. But the reality is, gun violence-wise, 2020 was less than 2016. But people have very short memories. Very short memories. And I am sure the fact that there is more violence, there appears to be more violence downtown and in the white areas of the city, has the white people and alt-right of the city freaking out. Because they don't care if the violence happens in black and brown communities, but they don't want it where they want to, when they want to go to the Cheesecake Factory or something. They don't want to have to worry about it. So here is Bobby Bluebird. Bluebird of Unhap. I'm surmising it's unhappiness. They brings a chart. Homicides in Chicago by year. Great. Why do we care? What context is this? Are you going to try? Is this an attempt to link those homicides to Fox's policies? Does that make any sense? Great. Yeah, Masan. This is the problem, and we're going to be publishing something with it later. There's a great meme going around about, data on the different stages and how it's organized and stuff, and when you actually can tell the story. This is meaningless. Congratulations. We had 2 of the last 6 years have been really bad. Or 20, and that's 20 and 16. That is not even close to what it was in the 90s. I just don't know. I don't know what that brings to the... I don't know what that brings to the table. All right, we're back to our original poster. And by the way, I learned the term, if you look propaganda, Carl, I got that from you, I think, on Twitter. I stole that term because I use it now. I'll give you credit now for it. Propaganda. There are hundreds of videos of the mayhem taking place. You know this, but it doesn't fit your agenda, so you play dumb. 2018 to 20, retail thefts up at CVS 37%. And crimes with a weapon have doubled. ABC had those stats on earlier today, but maybe that's propaganda too. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I got to tell you, if you're going to make a city safer, what you want to look at is violent crime, not retail theft. It'd be nice to have such a safe city that a city could concentrate on retail theft. But otherwise, who cares? Who cares? I'm sorry, who cares? I used to work in retail. I used to work in the jewelry business, and we tried to get people, when they stole from us, we involved the police, and most of the time we just wanted the stuff back, and most of the time we got it back. The one time we didn't, we prosecuted a guy. What good did it do? I wasted 2 days of work. He got a misdemeanor conviction. It did absolutely nothing for our business. There's a weird fascination and kind of cult thinking by these people that somehow prosecuting a retail theft person does anything. It actually makes their life worse, and they're starting to be emerging science that it actually makes them more likely to reoffend getting involved in the criminal justice system. There was a study of 15,000 people on retail theft, and I believe they divided them up into a control group and a treatment group. And half of the group they didn't prosecute, and half of the group they did prosecute, and a lot of those were convicted. The ones they put through the system were much more highly likely to reoffend. You're not, whatever the circumstances for causing retail theft, you're not making them better by putting them through the system. All you're doing is making it worse. 2 comments from Carl. Do these people care about violence and crime, or do they want more government resources going to government enforcing social hierarchy, racism enforced by the police? I think that for some people, I think it's a mixture. I think some people are legitimately scared. And I'm just going to keep up the tweets as I got a couple more to go through. So, Carl, I think some people are legitimately scared, but I think it's a mixture of not understanding crime statistics and the likelihood of being a victim. And I think the other part of it really is that they're just inundated with this stuff on social media and CWB and Facebook, and it's just coming at them. Like, I don't care if you see 100 videos from a single incident. Why do I care? And these people, like most of those incidents they're seeing on social media were never reported on before because they weren't news. It's not like they never happened. You mean over the last 20 years there were never events of violence and fights and stuff in downtown? I can't tell you how many fights I saw, and mass fights, 5, 20, 50, 100 people outside of bars at 1 or 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning in River North. They're dreaming. So part of it is fear, not understanding, being bombarded by the media and social media. The media is being pushed by social media and those alt-right outlets to cover it more, to get clicks. And part of it is, Carl, is just pure racism. Just pure racism. Whites wanting the police whites wanting resources going not to helping those people, but to punishing those people, and to the police to control them. They don't want their city looking bad on television, which is the whole thing around the prosecution of that idiot from, I want to say Enterprise, but that ain't the name of the show. Jesse Smollett, that idiot. I'm still trying to get people to tell me what crime he actually committed. He's indicted on something like 16 counts of disorderly conduct. They can't even come up with a crime what he did. He's a moron, no doubt, but people were like, oh my, he's just an embarrassment. Look how he embarrassed Chicago. Oh my God. Embarrassment to Chicago. Look at all the politicians. Look at the FOP president saying the rioters on the insurrectionists on the 6th, which is now a mile from me, and we're looking back at them in a few days. God, it's Wednesday. 2 days, I get them back in our city. That's an embarrassment. But these people want the criminal justice system to punish these people, control it, and stop it from happening. So half of it, I'm saying, there's a certain percentage that's just fear and fear of being able to, oh my God, this is creeping into their areas. And the other part, I think, Carl, is sure. They want more resources going into the social control to control people they don't like and want nothing to do at, which is black and brown people. Okay. So here was one of, and this started, I kept this to the last, but I put this out towards the end, but I also put it out in the beginning. So answer this, all-knowing people. If bond reform and Fox's practices are causing Chicago's crime, why didn't they do that in 2017, 18, 19? My dog wants to get into this. Why did they suddenly have an impact in 20 and 21? Facts only in the answers. They have no facts. Bond reform, bail reform came in late 2016. It was putting the same type of people that they're complaining about being on the street in 20 and 21 in 17, 18, and 19. They were all going to be back on the street in those years. Why didn't that cause massive increases in crime then, for those years? Why didn't it wait 4 years? Why did it take to the fourth or fifth year? And honestly, in 20 and 21 people, in 20 especially, most people weren't going into prison unless they were very violent. They were just pushing everyone out, bail reform or none, because of COVID. So 20 doesn't even really count as a bail reform year. The courts were shut down for many, many months. What are they talking about? Do they know? Not a chance. Not a chance. These people don't know. Now, here is the funniest thing about this, about the fact that CJP has to be the person, myself, CJP, has to be pushed to defending Foxx. I agree with a lot of the things Foxx has done, but not all. I think the handling of the Smollett case was a massive, massive, epic failure. Okay? Now, what do I mean by all? This is what I mean by all. I'm the only one in the conversation, ladies and gentlemen, suing Kim Foxx in the state's attorney's office. That's right. We sued the office, I think, in 15. They settled in 17. Her office was dishonest, disingenuous, lied. Broke the settlement agreement almost immediately, and in my opinion, knew they were breaking the settlement agreement. We filed more Freedom of Information requests. They didn't honor them. We had pre-litigation discussions. They told us to go screw off, so we are suing them. We are a couple of weeks, because we are in September, we're a couple of weeks away from their second and last bite at the apple to get the counts from the previous lawsuit that was settled in 17 dismissed. It is my lawyer's opinion that will get dismissed out of hand. Then it's trouble for them because we've already served them with interrogatories. And the question then becomes, what's next for them? What's next? Because I'll tell you, of all these idiots talking about how they know everything, we're the ones suing to get the data to prove what they're actually doing. All this data should be open. That's what we're doing. These people should be supporting CJP. We're the ones that are going to prove what the hell is actually going on. And you know, all these idiots that we're dealing with on Twitter, the alt-righters, they hate the media. They hate it. But God, and it's the same thing with this. It's the same thing with the vaccine, right? They hate the media. I don't trust them. I hate them. But that's the only place they get their information, or they're getting it from Facebook from other idiots. But this is white person mostly. White person I knowism, Trumpism. I know I don't need that. Common sense. I'm smart. I know. That's what it is. These people don't know nothing about this subject. They don't care. Hey, if these policies were pushing more crime, change them. I'm all for it. There's been one independent study from Loyola University. Go look it up on any of the social media you're watching this on. Well, it isn't on Twitch, but go to our YouTube channel, Facebook for sure. And look, I interviewed Dave Olson, Don Steeman over spring, about their study of bail reform. They took 6 or 8 months or a year or 18 months before and after bail reform. And did it cause more increase in crime? Did it meaningfully contribute to the increase in crime? Nope. Science, people. Science. You want to argue that data, that's fine. I knowism, you're a moron. Sorry, you're an idiot. I knowism. You're a moron. Monday show. Dr. Dave Olson from Loyola, again, they did another study. This time they looked at mostly gun possession prosecutions and convictions throughout the state of Illinois. Throughout the state. How many have occurred? What charges do they get? What are their sentences? And here's something, it's in the middle of the show, and you can get it on the pod too. Dave Olson was able to prove that during Kim Foxx's tenure, because they actually looked from 2009 to 2020, I think was the dates, or 2009 to 2019, they were basically able to prove that when they get a conviction for gun possession, unlawful use of weapon, 99% of the time that is gun possession. When they get convictions for that, the sentences in Cook County are longer than the sentences throughout the rest of the state. Why hasn't the media reported on that study? That's another independent, empirical, rigorous study. If someone wants to come to them or come to us and fight it, that's fine. Fight the data. I don't want to hear I know-isms. So literally, the data shows Kim Foxx's prosecutors are tougher on gun possession than the rest of the state. Getting longer sentences, because most of those plead. Yep. Where's that in the alt-right? Where's that on Chicago Contrarian? Where's that on CWB? These people don't know what the hell they're talking about. And just one last thing. These idiots, right, like CWB, this is how stupid they are. They don't understand the question. We're not saying, or pro-bail reform people, Fox, Evans, they're not saying no one on bail reform, no one out on bail through bail reform has ever committed a violent act again or a crime again. No, we're not. We're saying the vast majority don't. The vast majority show up for court without having to pay bail. That be the truth. So CWB Chicago, the alt-right outlet that it is like starting to catalog these people. The number of times that people on bail reform have committed violent offenses. And they're up to 46 over a few months. So let's just say, ladies and gentlemen, that they have 46 over 3 months, and they're summer months. So most likely in the winter months, that would be less, because there's just less crime and violence. But let's keep that, 46 for a quarter of the year. Let's multiply that by 4. That's 160, 24, that's 184. Let's say 200. Just give CWB some extras. Let's say 500, actually. There's something like 7,000 some shootings. Not to mention robberies, armed robberies, aggravated assaults, aggravated batteries, domestic violence, rapes, sexual assaults. Even if you got the 500, which they're not going to get anywhere near close to 500 in a year, that's not a significant driver in any increase. They don't know what they're talking about. They're so dumb, though. They think the number they're collecting is helping them. They're proving us right in their own data collection. They don't care. Facts don't matter. To quote Kellyanne Conway, they're using alternative facts. I have just decided to just treat all of these people, Chicago City Wire, CWB, the Chicago Contrarian, I'm just going to treat them all like Trumpers, like they're dealing with the Trumpers. You're dealing with insurrectionists. Science doesn't matter. Data doesn't matter. One of the tweets I didn't put up was, well, you can twist data any way you want. No, you really can't. You really can't. Not if it's sound empirical work that's open to criticism, getting published in journals, getting reviewed. It's much harder to do it that way, my friend. But you don't have to worry about it because all these people know isms. This is like the people knowing that, Nicki Minaj, that you get swollen testicles now by taking the vaccine. I mean, really, this is just crazy ass shit. But this is the same shit. It's the same thing. These are very much like the anti-vaxxer people. They know everything. You don't have to worry about science or data or any of that. They know. So these are the arguments you're getting. They know Fox is responsible. Why? Because John Catanzara, one of the most trusted voices in Chicago, Don't mind the 50 complaints he has while he's been 23 years on the job. Don't mind that the city tried to fire him twice. Don't mind that he's on his third attempt to be fired, which I'm almost guarantee you he's going to be fired this time. And don't mind that he hates every type of person that isn't a straight white male. And he's proven it on social media. Go look at our website. Catanzara, 23 years of misconduct and posting to social media. Though, when you look at these people on social media and you see those tweets, remember, that's who they're believing. That's who they're ready to follow off the cliff. What integrity does a cop have who has 50 complaints? And ladies and gentlemen, I think I'm working with sources now that at least 30% of those complaints, if not much, much higher, are actually from internal sources. That's how bad of a cop he is. Bosses and coworkers complained against him almost every year. How bad of a cop do you have to be for that to be true? This is who they're believing, right? This is alt-rightism, Trumpism, and that's how we're just going to treat them. Hopefully, we're going to be publishing more on the publishing habits of these organizations because it's pretty gross and grotesque. And basically, CWB is just picking up where the media is mostly left off and leaving a lot of the day-to-day crime stuff to not, because it's not that important. But because these idiots see videos on social media, because they have such hatred for people of color, especially Foxx being one of them, especially people of color in power, they're just venomous. Okay. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. I really appreciate it. Remember, special content coming to the podcast version of this. Carl, thanks for the comments. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, during the show, any of the social media comments, drop a comment in or a question. I'm happy to incorporate it in the show. If you have ideas for interviews you want on the show, we're trying to get Sharon Williams, if I got his name right, the current Cook County Public Defender. We've been communicating. We're hopefully going to have him on the show soon. And we're looking for other people to bring on to interview. And we're looking for suggestions. So drop us a note at info@chicagojustice.org or hit us up on any of our social media platforms. We'd love to hear from you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I will be back on Friday at 5:30. Thank you. Have a great day.